Hello, this is Instructor Fierro. I hope you're having a good week. I want to introduce you to some models of communication. This mini lecture will help you prepare for journal number 2. In its broadest sense, communication is the process of acting upon information. Communication is not a simple, linear, what you send is what is received process. Human communication is the process of making sense out of the world and sharing that sense with others by creating meaning through verbal and nonverbal messages. Competent communication is more than just being well liked or the ability to give polished presentations or interacting well with others. Messages should be understood, achieve the communicator's intended effect, and communication should always be ethical. When the message isn't clear, people misunderstand. Messages are fragile and can easily be misunderstood. An effective message is one the receiver understands. An early model looked at communication as action, with emphasis on the message transfer. Harold Laswell described the process as who, the sender, says what, the message, in what channel, to whom, the receiver, with what effect. The model Laswell created identified communication as a linear input-output process. The source is the thought or emotion created by the person expressing the idea or the originator of the thought or emotion. The source encodes the message. Encoding is translating feelings and thoughts into a code. Communication is full of signs, symbols, words. For example, if I want you to sit in a chair, I might speak the words, "Please sit in the chair." Or I might gesture and point to the chair, and you might understand my nonverbal message. When our thoughts need to be put into words or nonverbal gestures, what we're doing is encoding. Then decoding is when the word or the unspoken signals are translated into thoughts and feelings. You hear the word chair and you decode the message, or you see the gesture and you decode the meaning. The receiver is the person who's decoding the signal. The messages can be written, spoken, or unspoken elements of communication. The channel is the pathway, and the sense is stimulated when a message is sent. The channel might be a face-to-face conversation. The channel used might be a text from a cell phone or a Facebook post. In 1949, a year after Laswell developed the linear model, Shannon and Weaver revised the model to add noise. Noise can be physical, like a loud car alarm that keeps you from hearing the phone call, or psychological, like when you miss out on what the person is saying because instead of actively listening, you're thinking about your weekend plans. Laswell's linear model has really serious flaws. This model portrays communication as only flowing in one direction from the sender to a passive receiver. Human communication rarely, if ever, is as simple and efficient as what we put in is what we get out. Communication as interaction is a later model that emerged in the early 1950s and focused on the idea of interaction, message exchange. This model added two key elements, feedback and context. Feedback is the verbal or nonverbal response to the message. The context can be the physical, historical, or psychological setting governing the communication exchange. While this is more realistic than the linear model, this model is flawed in that it views communication as a stop-action event and fails to recognize the simultaneous process of sending and receiving messages that occurs in communication. The communication as transaction perspective, which evolved in the 1960s, acknowledges that when we communicate with another, we are constantly reacting to what our partner is saying and expressing. The model uses the same elements as the previous models, but acknowledges that even as we talk, we are interpreting our partner's nonverbal and verbal responses. The distinction is that we create meaning rather than just transferring or exchanging it during a communication transaction, and noise is present throughout. This mini lecture is only intended to introduce you to the models. The models are discussed in more detail in your text. Please read through Chapter 1 carefully, and then use what you've learned to help you write an analysis for Journal Number 2. Think about a situation you have experienced in which communication went wrong. Start by explaining the scenario. Then you're going to do a step-by-step analysis diagnosing the problem. Use the instructions for the assignment. Follow the instructions very carefully. I look forward to reading your assignments. Have a good week.